So hey guys, I'm back with another video. So for this one I wanted to try something new. I've seen a lot of YouTubers do like director rankings or filmmaker rankings. So I thought I'd try my hand at one of those. And I wanted to pick a filmmaker who I really like and really appreciate but doesn't have like a crap ton of movies that I'd have to do a lot of homework for. And I also didn't want to pick someone like M. Night Shyamalan or James Cameron who everyone's done their ranking. So the first person that came to mind was John Hughes. For like the handful of you that don't know, John Hughes was one of the biggest filmmakers of all time in the 80s. He wrote and produced dozens of movies. He's known for his quippy dialogue and his fun and well-rounded characters. So even though he wrote and produced a lot of movies, for this video I'm only going to be counting the ones that he directed. If you want to know which ones those are, you can look in the description down below. And before I begin my ranking, I just want to say John Hughes never directed a bad movie. All of these movies I think are fun, I think they have a lot of strong points, but when you're making a list like this, some of them just have to be towards the bottom. So yeah, let's get started. At number 8 is Weird Science. Well, there's a lot I like in this movie. I like Anthony Michael Hall, I like Kelly, whatever her name is. I like Ian Mitchell Smith. But for me, the bad just kinda outweighs the good. There's an uneven tone with some scenes being really typical John Hughes 80s teenager stuff and some of it being kind of a more sci-fi, and then there's like a Mad Max scene towards the end. There's some unlikable characters too. I mean, I'm all for nerdy characters. Heck, I'm a big nerd. But when they're perving on girls and overall just not being likable people, I kind of have trouble latching onto them. This movie also has a really slow pace. I watched it for the first time a year or two ago and recently rewatched it for this video, and I was like, wow, this movie moves a lot slower than I remember. So yeah, it's not a terrible movie. It has its strong points. The John Hughes dialogue and characters really show, but it's my least favorite of the ones he directed. At number 7 is Curly Sue. This movie is about a homeless man played by Jim Belushi and his little kind of adopted daughter of sorts named Curly Sue, conning a successful lawyer, played by Kelly Schmitz, I believe. As the three characters spend more time together, they each grow and evolve and learn a lot from each other. So yeah, it has its good points. Like I said, it has very fun characters, great dialogue. This was the last movie he directed, and I feel like he learned from his previous movies because the character arcs in this movie are really solid. But my problems lie with it's a bit too fast, which is strange because I thought some of his older movies were a bit too slow. I think this whole movie just moves a bit too quickly. And overall, it's just not as engaging as the other movies. I just found myself bored, and I'd often be tempted to just take out my phone and start scrolling through social media. But yeah, moving on. Number 6 is 16 Candles. This was the first movie he both wrote and directed. It has a lot of his kind of trademarks like teenagers, high school, Molly Ringwald, Anthony Michael Hall, romance. But the problem here is the protagonist just isn't that likable of a character. Don't get me wrong, I love Molly Ringwald. She's great in The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, lots of other movies. But she's just not a very likable or relatable character here. Anthony Michael Hall's character is also a bit annoying. Don't get me wrong, I love Anthony Michael Hall. He's great in The Breakfast Club, he's good in Weird Science. He was good in like 5 minutes of The Dark Knight. But here, he just kind of gets on my nerves a little bit. There's also some slow pacing that I was talking about earlier. I feel like a lot of his older movies weren't quite paced correctly. And it just overall doesn't resonate with me as much as other movies do. Maybe it's because it's about a teenage girl and I am a boy, but I don't know. This one just doesn't grab me as much as the others. At number 5 is She's Having a Baby. This one is a lot different from the others. It's about a young couple who get married really early and them just trying to kind of figure out their way in life. This is probably the most serious movie he did not involving teenagers. It has some fun characters in the two leads. There's some great performances from Kevin Bacon and Alec Baldwin. But Elizabeth McGovern just is not as good as her two co-stars. I don't know if it was a lack of character development or poor direction or what, but her acting is just not up to par with the other two. There's also some not very well-defined character arcs. That was something that I feel like his later movies worked out, was having really strong, well-defined character arcs, but here they're just not quite as well-defined as I would like. But going back to positives, it has some really good themes about growing up and responsibility and just trying to live life to the fullest in general. At number 4 is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This is a very fun, lighthearted comedy starring Steve Martin and John Candy, rest in peace. It has really likable characters from both of them. There's lots of creative, fun sequences about two men trying to get home for the holidays. This might be his funniest movie. I think this is the movie that had me just laughing the hardest. It really shows his talent for coming up with comedy set pieces, which is not something you see a lot in the comedy genre. There's excellent chemistry between the characters. I think these two bounce off each other really well. But the negatives of this movie kind of are staples of bad things in John Hughes movies, which are just poorly defined character arcs. I feel like the character arcs of the two leads just could have been better portrayed, I think is a good way of phrasing it. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. But like I said, that's something that his later movies worked out. Bringing us into the top 3 is Uncle Buck. This also is a very funny movie. There's some great characters. John Candy is always great. He's one of those actors that it doesn't matter what movie he's in, he's always good in that movie. There's some great performances all around, even from the child actors, including a young Macaulay Culkin. And this movie also has some really solid character arcs. This is when I feel like he got his kind of bumps worked out. Whether we're talking about John Candy's character or the oldest teenage daughter or the little kids, all of their character arcs are really well defined and really well portrayed. Now, these top 2 movies, they switch around in my head all the time which one I like more. I could easily put them both in my top 10 or 15 favorite movies of all time. But I think the one I put at number 1 is just my favorite a little bit more often. But yeah, our runner-up is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This movie has some very likable characters. Matthew Broderick, Alan Ruck, Mia Sara, they're all great. I like how in this movie Hughes gives his protagonist kind of a flat arc in the sense that the main character knows a truth and constantly has to fight off the lies of the side characters. I feel like Alan Ruck's character, Cameron, has a really solid character arc, and so does Jennifer Grey. One thing I noticed about the movie is that literally everybody in this movie has character. Whether we're talking about the receptionist at the school, or the host at the restaurant, or the valet at the car rental place, everybody has a personality. And the score is good too. That's something I didn't notice until this most recent rewatch, is how good the musical score for this movie is. This movie really is John Hughes in his prime. This is him being the very best at what he does. But my favorite John Hughes movie, without a doubt, is The Breakfast Club. I consider this movie to be a masterpiece. I could easily put this in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Whether we're talking about the performances, or the characters, or the dialogue, or the really solid character arcs, or just the entire setting and concept of the movie is just amazing. And what's remarkable about this movie is that it barely even had a script. So much of this movie was improvised, like the entire scene where they sit around and tell each other about why they're in detention, that entire scene was improvised. This movie helped me get through high school. My high school experience, like most others, had its ups and its downs, but the message and moral of this movie really helped me push through it all, and now I'm a lot happier now that I'm in college. This movie defines an entire generation of people, an entire genre of cinema, and is the reason that John Hughes is the icon he is today. So yeah, that's it. That's my list. Leave me your list down in the comments below. You don't only have to include movies that he directed, you can also include movies that he wrote or produced. Let me know if you guys would want to see more videos like this. There's plenty of filmmakers who I would love to watch all the movies they made and rank them all from worst to best, but doing a video like this takes a lot of homework, which takes a lot of time. Let me know what filmmakers you guys would like to see me rank. So yeah, just letting you guys know, I'm going to be starting up my college semester again in this next week or 2. So there's not going to be nearly as many videos. I tried to have 1 video a week throughout the entire summer, and I think I did a good job with that. I'm thinking about maybe doing some videos that don't really require a lot of homework or a lot of effort. Maybe I'll rank the Stan Lee cameos or the Marvel post-credit scenes or something like that that doesn't really take a lot of time to make. So as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Don't you forget about me. Bye.